So, in the second part of the discussion that we'll have today is a completely different topic, but it kind of relates, is also in terms of processing Vedic literature in a contemporary society. We need to understand the topic of addictions, understanding addictions. So, addictions may be things that we're attached to um, that may not be serving us well anymore. They may not be bringing any benefit or positive effect. I don't know if addictions could be neutral, but usually they're quite detrimental. They're having a negative impact. So it's a word with a negative connotation, and we may not know, or we may justify addictions we have, but we should try to understand them and move on from them, because if they're not serving us well or those around us, then why keep it? So yeah, some addictions that we have, for example, are addictions to our lower propensities. In a society where we don't have positive, inspiring, real good role models, we won't even know that we have these addictions. We'll just think it's normal. Because we kind of idolize bad people in contemporary society. We think that rich celebrities and money moguls are our idols, but they have a lot of negative addictions, unhealthy addictions that are actually bad. And people, for some reason, we believe these things are going to make us happy or uplift us or bring us some kind of benefit in some way, but they don't. They might bring a temporary sense of enjoyment, but they might have long-term adverse effects, and they might have adverse effects on other people and living entities and things, even though they might bring us a little bit of a temporary pleasure. So those are not the kind of things that we're trying to go for in life. We're trying to go for the all positive, all loving, all inspiring, all encouraging kind of things, and they exist. So there's no point in staying stuck with the things that are overall detrimental, or being selfish about that, because when we have a positive effect also on others, then that is more reciprocated to us too. And maybe it might not come immediately, maybe it might come karmically later. But there is no belief system which doesn't say that, do unto others as you would like done unto yourself, or the whole philosophy of karma. Everything is always telling us to try and have a higher way of life, and principles and values and ways to do things. So yeah, some of the topics we can discuss relating to addiction would be, understanding why is addiction in the mode of ignorance. Why is it something that comes from ignorance? What are the effects? Like, why do we have addiction to lower propensities? First of all, it's a comfort zone thing. So, lower propensities mean the lower ways of human nature: envy, greed, fighting, like material competition. There's so many things we can think of which are lower propensities, the bad aspects of human nature. So comfort zones, we might be used to a particular habit and it's just a comfort zone. We just, don't want to have to think or change. It's just comfortable to be stuck with that kind of thing, but it could be something which is bad for us, like just addicted to harsh words or harsh language or alcohol or too much sleep, intoxicants, whatever, coffee. So those things are not good for us, but it's just a comfort zone, and we don't want to go through the challenging transition of detaching from something negative. There are also addictions which we have, which are like psychic escapes. So instead of dealing with something, we kind of we psychologically used this addiction as a way to escape the reality of something. So we believe that they bring us some sort of relief or stress, from stress, maybe, or they help us to forget about something that is troubling us in our consciousness. I think a lot of people take intoxication as a psychic escape, which is a negative addiction, because it doesn't cure the problem. It just temporarily helps you to run away from it, and then you have to go back to it. And often those psychic escapes kind of reinforce the negative situation as well. They make that negative situation grow larger and stronger, which is not good. Yeah. Or why do we look for psychic escape? Sometimes it's just because we're not satisfied. We're not satisfied with our circumstances, our current condition, our experiences. We want something else, and we hope that this addiction is going to take us there, or create that in some way. We're looking. Everybody's looking for love. Everybody's looking for happiness. Psychedelics might be a way to try and experience something nicer than the current world that we're living in. But it's like it's an unmaintainable kind of escape. It's not somewhere where we can stay and really escape our problem. It's just a temporary kind of bliss rush, happiness rush. It's not even bliss. Bliss is a spiritual thing. So also addictions could be, sensual addictions for momentary pleasure. I think a lot of people have those kinds of addictions. People get into sex addiction, they get into binge eating, they get into alcohol, intoxicant addictions. Some people have like spending addictions where they just spend money like gambling or like on holidays and some things sometimes with a negative twist on it. But yeah, the problem is that these kinds of addictions are perpetuating the cycle and they're not really solving the problem. So that's why the Vedas are teaching us ways in which to actually understand why these addictions are bad for us and learn how to grow from them in a really nice, easy way, without too much difficulty. Actually, usually the methods recommended in the Vedas are really pleasant, but we might be afraid in the beginning because of the comfort zone thing. But usually we experience much greater relief and bliss and healing when we just kind of allow our minds to accept the possibility of trying something new to alleviate that. So that's very nice that the Vedas give very clean and positive and easy methods. So some of the things which are related to addictions are, discipline, fake it till you make it attitude. So usually when we have an issue, we have to kind of create a new positive habit. And we might not enjoy it so much or believe it so much in the beginning, but we have to keep doing it until the positive effects of that new habit settle in and they become genuine. Like waking up in the morning with affirmations. I have energy, I am successful, I treat everyone in my life with love and care. We might not really do that. We might not really believe it. But if we read it every morning and we just stick it out and we commit to it, over time, eventually those affirmations will become realities. They'll become realities. And you kind of have to fake it till you make it. So intoxicants also are a bit of a reality twister. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how association also affects it, and it's the mode of ignorance. So we have to replace and not repress addictions. You don't just cut them, you replace them. So ignorance would be the opposite of goodness. If you're wondering what I mean when I say ignorance and why addictions are related to ignorance, it's like in the mode of goodness, which is a state of consciousness described in the Vedic literatures, it's the opposite of illusion. Ignorance would be a consciousness of illusion, great illusion, not dealing with the reality or the facts of something. And goodness would be an appreciation of knowledge, real knowledge, So when we're in a state of illusion, it's like we're trying to escape the true fact or reality about something. And that's not useful. And it can be dangerous. It can have dangerous effects. So things which also create illusion is like oversleeping, sometimes depression, wrath and anger really can create a sense of illusion because we don't think straight when we're in that heated emotion. Or because of the stimulus or the cause of it, wanting, not getting what we want and then becoming angry. But that is not a healthy stimulus for acting on the feeling of aggression, that we're not satisfied, that lust which is in nature. It's a lower human propensity. In goodness, facts are welcomed. The truth is welcomed. This is the mode of goodness. So we need to start opening up our mind to dealing with reality and facts and being welcoming to those in order to overcome addictions. We have to face the facts about those things and the effects and so on. So that's one thing. Sometimes it's difficult because sometimes people kind of shut down and then they go into these lower states. Like sometimes a person who experiences extreme trauma, or abuse, can develop symptoms of the mode of ignorance. So these people can be fine before, and then they can just, from these experiences, become very angry, very rejectful. They might go into excessive sleep. They might have interest in addictions to intoxicants as psychic escapes, feel rejected. They might refuse uplifting knowledge or helpful knowledge or association, or become depressed. So it can also be a cause of sorry, I have to rearrange my thoughts. Okay, so we'll skip over this topic of ignorance because I guess it's kind of explained, but it's besides the point. There is a very great devotee and Bhakti Yoga practitioner, and his name is Gauranga. So he actually makes some really nice points. I don't want to do too much repetition, so that's kind of where I was going, but he says that, yoga is a treatment for addictions. It's a really positive treatment for addictions. So yoga removes the root of addiction. So it's kind of like if, a fan is unplugged, then slowly it will just slowly spiral down and turn off. So yoga can have this effect on our addictions. It's very positive. So he describes 5 Ds, which we can understand that the yogic practice gives us, which help us overcome addictions. And the first one is discipline. So to have a regulated new routine, which is healthy for our body and our mind and our responsibilities and our work and things, a regulated daily routine, weekly including yogic practices, such as mantra or other forms of yoga. This is really positive and beneficial. Because now our senses can be engaged in something which is helping us, as opposed to those things which we might have been addicted to before, because we always need to have our senses busy doing something. So, just replacing those activities and those time slots with something yogic can actually give us a really positive and nice engagement. Discrimination. So we need to start gaining knowledge for discrimination, learning what's wrong and what's right, learning how to discern that. What's moral and what's immoral, what's healthy and what's unhealthy. We have to start being open to knowledge to help us develop intelligent discrimination. The third D is detachment. So we have to learn to become open to detachment from the sense objects. So just, we have senses and they're constantly having these experiences of bliss or unbliss. Accepting and rejecting, based on the sensual experience. But we have to just take a moment to recognize I am not my senses, and the experience that my senses are having are not necessarily experiences that my consciousness is having. Those are just temporary material experiences. So a little bit of detachment from, being addicted to the sensory experience will help us to understand how to process it. So we take those sense objects and we engage them in something higher. We engage our senses in higher, something spiritual, attending spiritual functions, doing something good for our health like yoga, or going to kirtan, for example, sitting in a sacred sound meditation experience. Positive effects all around. The next D is determination. So when you're stuck with an addiction, there's no determination. but we have to develop it. Maybe we have to fake it till we make it, or find some people in our life that inspire us to become determined to do something new. But definitely inspiring and spiritually advanced association is the main factor which will help us to become determined to do something. It's very hard to change our habits or addictions when we keep the same association in our life, and those people kind of verify or support that way, or they're similar to you in that way. You need to have positive association. So people who are not exhibiting lower propensities, so for example, people who are very honest as opposed to people that want to cheat, that have a cheating way of doing things, people that are very honest, people that are very disciplined, self-disciplined, um, in terms of their fitness, in terms of their morals and their values, and achieving their goals, take on positive association. People that are open to morality, that are positive about living by morals and values, and open to gaining important new ones. People that are not suppressing any kind of anger, that are loving and kind and positive. People that are easily able to take a humble position and apologize or admit their faults or their weaknesses, or do things not to just impress people, but to focus on an important value or important goal or instruction that they have in their life. People that are patient and tolerant, that don't exhibit aggression and anger, and people that are inclusive and uniting and harmonizing and accepting, not people that maybe are divisive or to try to create enemies or something like that. People that are very compassionate and progressive and inclusive, and those are the kind of people that are very good association, will help us to overcome addictions. People that speak well of other people, and people that avoid unnecessary kind of fights or conflicts, by intelligent or compassionate ways of dealing in their relationships, and people that treat other people well as well. People that are good in the way that they treat people, kind, compassionate, intelligent, helpful, supportive, as opposed to maybe exhibiting cruelty without a cause or things like that. So we need those kinds of positive association. The final D is dedication. So dedicate oneself to good and spiritual habits in the service of great souls. If we can do that, dedicate oneself to good and spiritual habits in the service of great souls, nothing can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong. We will only make positive progress, even though we might go through challenges in that. A lot of humbling and purification and acknowledging of our faults and coming to the foreground with it, enforcing new habits and affirmations. It will benefit us so much in the long term. We'll form new habits and be able to move on. One can, do positive things, visit holy places, visit sacred places to feel inspired to overcome bad addictions, and increase their levels of cleanliness as well, keeping everything clean, making an effort to keep one's body and one's space and one's possessions clean. Sometimes people are seeking deep healing and seeking, things like. So yeah, a lot of people are turning, as I said, towards plant medicines, which are kind of intoxicant, as a way of us getting deep healing for psychological PTSD, all kinds of things. What is a Vedic reflection on this kind of thing? So the thing is that it is really your choice. What you choose to be your methods of healing, and healing your mind and your body and your soul, becoming to a happier state of mind, that is your choice. And the Vedas are it's books of knowledge. It's knowledge which was handed down from God to Brahma, and it's very useful and valuable, and they might be the most effective and useful healing techniques in the long term. but it doesn't discredit things that are not necessarily mentioned. Perhaps I can't verify that that's a good thing, because it does discredit intoxication, but there's an understandable reason for that, because intoxication isn't a genuine natural way of healing, if that makes sense. It creates a dependency or a need for an external kind of substance, where it's like, how can I explain it? Plant medicines can have a very healing effect. Even scientifically, there has been some evidence which has proved that, it can heal like neurons and their connectivity, and like psychological traumas and just positive feelings that people have in some things. So that's a genuine thing. Even like psilocybin, like mushrooms, have been proven to actually help people with depression and healing traumas and deep emotional scars and things. And so a lot of people are actually experimenting with that. The hippies were doing the same thing in Prabhupada's time in, New York and around the world in the 60s and the 70s, and it's still pretty prevalent today. But yeah, the reason it's discredited is because it doesn't give you the tools to learn how to cope with reality. And that's what the Vedic healing methods do. They give you the tools to help you to cope with reality, so you don't have to keep running away into an alternate space to heal. You can be here, you can be present, you can understand the nature and reality of things and be positive and heal. So even though some people might gain the benefit of being able to separate the identify the difference between the soul and the body when they're having a psychedelic or plant medicine experience, which is usually what it is. It's usually the experience that your senses are like tweaking out, your senses, your vision, your feeling, your hearing, everything's like, and basically you can still feel your consciousness is the same. Your consciousness is still, I am still me in this body, but everything's merging and melting or glowing or whatever. So people start to develop this sense of, the higher self, or that which we meditate on, the consciousness within the body, and this distinction between the body, the physical body, and the consciousness begins to develop, and that's where a lot of the healing part takes place, is that, they feel this sudden strength over the physical experience, that you're not so subjected to it, that your consciousness is separate. It might be a little bit of a battle, a person might go into a good trip and a bad trip, and sometimes feel overwhelmed by the physical experience, feel like it's really affecting them, and then start to have a negative experience. Or the whole time, they might think that they're experiencing God in some way, which is kind of linked to the fact that they're experiencing the soul, which is a piece of God and its pure qualities, as separate to everything that the body is doing. So even our negative emotions, our trauma, our conditioning, our bad habits and thoughts, our thoughts themselves, the positive and the negative ones, are not really us. It's not you. It's just something that your body, your soul is attached to with the body. And that's where all of that is carried. Your memory, your mind, your intelligence, your physical experience is in the body. So that is why a lot of people really feel like it's a spiritual thing or a healing thing. And that is one of the steps in understanding, if you have to go that way, or you just understand it logically, that the physical body, the mind, the intelligence is separate to the soul, and the false ego is, along with the other things, separate to the soul. But it's not necessarily required that you can need that in order to get there. You can get that from just understanding Vedic wisdom, or doing some of the non-invasive methods which are recommended in the Vedas: kirtan yoga, reading, hearing from a guru, developing a spiritual consciousness. So those are healthier addictions than necessarily what we might get from a plant medicine even experience. It's not necessary. And once you get a guru, You cannot take it once you make a commitment to a guru and you do the process of formally committing to them in a fire yagya. They will take the negative karma of you breaking any of those rules that you committed to, the four principles, and they will probably get sick. They get sick from that. So those principles are non-negotiable once you make a formal commitment with your guru. And we should be compassionate to get that stuff out the way if we have to do it before we make the formal commitment.